Most amazing thing I ever saw in my life. He's got a size 18 foot. You know what that looks like? That's like my boat sitting on a boat trailer. It's huge. But his foot was so big, and I said, there's no way he can jump rope. He skipped rope like Muhammad Ali. It was unbelievable. I said, he's going to be a phenomenal player. So to kind of progress from this, you know, the first year as a freshman, I had him on the varsity. He'd have some good games. He'd have some games that, you know, he was just a child. And you had to work with him. You had to be real patient with him and kind of encourage him. And it was real frustrating at times because you go, you know, you're just going to have to get it. You got to develop that killer instinct. And I tried to tell him, I said, look, when you go on the basketball court, they're not your friends that you're playing against. They're kind of like the enemy. And he goes, yes, sir. And he was so kind to people that when they would foul him, he'd say thank you, and he'd go to the free throw line, and he'd shoot his free throws, and that was painful to watch because it took him a while. He's kind of like Shaquille O'Neal, very, very, very similar to that. But when he became a sophomore in high school, we had a snowstorm, and we had a couple games that were canceled, but they let us practice, and we came up here, and one day we were in the gym and we were working, and he was starting to get it. He was starting to get a little bit better. And I said, we got something here. We just got to understand, just kind of run him to the rim and make him sprint to the basket and just throw him the ball, because he had phenomenal hands. He had the biggest hands I've ever seen in my life. Size 10 hand. I think Michael Jordan's are 9.5. Eric's is a size 10. And he could catch anything. He would have been a phenomenal tight end in the NFL. But he didn't like football. I think they put the football uniform on him in the middle school, and he didn't like it. It was too hot, right? That's what Deborah told me. So I said, well, he gets to wear shorts playing basketball, so he shouldn't get too hot. So, we practiced, and, he played sophomore, got a little bit better. Then his junior year, we were invited to the Glaxo Welcome Tournament. And we were playing his team out of Duluth, Minnesota. And they had this kid named Rick Rickard, and he was a McDonald's All-American. And they were really highly touted team, and they came down, and we're playing this team. And at halftime, we're getting beat. And I remember we're playing in Reynolds Coliseum, and they got this stairwell that goes down. It's almost like you're going all the way down to hell to get down there. And we went down at halftime, and I think I sprinted down those steps. I was so angry because I couldn't get Eric to, I said, you gotta start playing. So in the locker room, the halftime speech basically revolved around me and Eric having a one-on-one. And, I think I almost had a heart attack because I was so intense trying to get him to break through. Well, he came upstairs, and we went back on the floor, and Eric got the ball dunk, got the ball dunk, got the ball, stuffed it, got the ball, slammed it, and all of a sudden, Duluth calls a timeout. We're up by 15 points, and Eric comes over to the bench. He goes, "Is that what you mean, Coach?" I go, "That's what I mean. And don't forget it." And he just kept playing, and then it's kind of that was his coming out party. And then the next game, we ended up playing a team from, their famous team, DeMatha High School. And luckily, we were playing them because the person who was in charge of McDonald's All-American team was their head basketball coach. And what's his name, Coach? Coach Morgan Wooten. And Morgan Wooten was the coach there. And I remember at halftime, Morgan Wooten, I think he won over 1,000 games in his career. He's more famous than Coach K. I don't want to offend anybody in here, but I mean, he was pretty famous. And at halftime, we're playing in the Glaxo Welcome. We're playing the Glaxo Welcome tournament, but we're playing at the RBC Center, which is now called the what's it? what's it called now? I don't live here anymore.
PNC.
PNC. PNC. It's called the PNC. We were the first high school team to play in this the tournament there, and we're playing DeMatha High School. And at halftime, you know, they've got 5 McDonald's All-Americans on their team, and I've got a great group of guys. And we go in at halftime, and we're up by, I think, maybe 2 or 3 points, and I'm trying to, you know, will them on. I said, hey, we got 16 more minutes. Come on, you guys, we got to do it. Well, Coach Wooten, he's not too worried. He has his assistants go into the locker room to talk to his team, and Coach Nance went to the bathroom and at halftime, and Coach Wooten goes in there, and he's going to the bathroom. He's just kind of talking to Coach Nance about Eric Williams. He says, hey, I really like that Eric kid. And Greg comes back and tells me the story. You know, I'm trying to win a basketball game here, you know. And I go, I don't want to talk about that. Let's go. Well, that was an interesting story because Coach Wooten called me, Morgan Wooten called me Eric's senior year, and he called me on the telephone. He said, Coach, he said, I really like your player, Eric Williams. He said, I'm the head of the McDonald's All-American team, and I'm sick and tired of picking these guys that are McDonald's All-American kids that can't qualify for college, for Division I school. And I'm sitting there going, uh-oh. You know, I know what he's gonna ask me. And I knew what he was gonna ask me, and it was painful because he goes, is Eric, he says, I want to put Eric on the McDonald's All-American team. And I said, yes, sir. And he said, will he qualify for Division I? And I said, yes, sir. And as soon as I hung up the phone, I went running down the hallway, and I said, Eric, look, I just gave this guy my word. You better get your grades up so you can become a McDonald's All-American. And not just be on the All-American team, but I want you to qualify to go to Wake Forest University. Well, it was a long, drawn-out procedure. And thank God, this speaks volumes of this school and this community and these teachers here. Because the teachers all knew how important it was for Eric to go to Wake Forest. And everybody knew that if he, you know, he had to really study hard to get his, he had the SAT score, but the SAT score and the GPA had to come together. And he had to have better than a 2.0 GPA. And his last semester, he pulled it all off. And the clearinghouse committee called me in June of that summer, after he graduated in 2002. And I was in the gymnasium here, and I had a guy that was hooking up this clock, that they blow the whistle and it stops the clock. And this guy's sitting here, and I get a phone call, and I answer the phone. It's a clearinghouse calling me. And they go, Coach Hess, look, this is a clearinghouse out of Princeton. We just want to call and tell you that Eric Williams is qualified. This was a teacher's work day. But I started screaming at the top of my lungs, like, you know, I'm hysterical. And the guy, it was Mike Constable. He was an official. And he just freaked out. He thought, what's wrong with you? And I sprinted all the way down the hallways, running down the hallways, telling all the teachers that he'd made it, that he was going to go to Wake Forest University. And I tell you what, I was more excited about that than anything else that he accomplished as a basketball player, because it made all the dreams come true. And you know, I can go on and talk about all of his accomplishments. He averaged 28 points a game his senior year, 15 rebounds a game. He was on the 25th McDonald's All-American team. The conference we played in that year had 5 players in the conference that played in the ACC. And that's amazing, because the ACC is the best basketball probably in the world. And Eric goes to Wake Forest, Shavlik Randolph goes to Duke, and Shawan Robinson goes to Clemson. There's two other youngsters, one at Millbrook that went to Virginia, and another one went to Georgia Tech and played. A phenomenal class. When these kids were conceived that year, all the stars were in line just right. I mean, it was amazing. There should have been more kids born at that time, but it was amazing what happened. But I was just blessed to be in the right place at the right time. Not too many people can coach very long, and Coach Peebles had a phenomenal player in Daniel. And that's kind of what, I was blessed to be at the right place at the right time. Coach Peebles is the right place at the right time to impact Daniel. I was at the right place at the right time to have a McDonald's All-American kid. I mean, there's only 25, there's a total of 25 kids in the country. And got to go to Madison Square Garden and watch him play. His mother, Deborah, was just very, very happy and thrilled. I think that she asked me one time, she says, Coach S, there's one thing you do. I don't care what happens. If you can get him to be a McDonald's All-American, that would be one of the happiest moments of her life. And if that's true, I'm very, very thankful that Coach Wooten, put him on that team. But, I was just very lucky to be in a community, but the teachers, I want you to know that the teachers here are phenomenal people. This was one of the best kept secrets in Wake County, this school. But it's so neat to see Coach Belcher, Coach Joyner, Coach Coach Monte's back here. Coach Shelton.
I'll do this for Eric. Eric is in Switzerland playing in the playoffs himself, and he couldn't make it here tonight. And I want to take the time to say thank you to everyone. And I do have a couple of stories that I want to share with everyone. Coach Hess did a phenomenal job with Eric. I remember the first time Coach Hess had asked him to stay after school. He called me up, Ma, what, the coaches want me to stay after school. I said, did you do anything wrong? He said, no, I think they want me to come down to the gym. I said, oh, okay, well, go ahead and have fun and call me up and I'll come pick you up. No, I think my best friend. I said, you have a best friend now? He said, yeah. His name is Tommy Moore. And he said, they want me to play basketball. I said, oh, okay. So he went to practice. He came home. I said, well, how was it? Are you going to play or you thinking about playing? And he said, well, Coach S, he don't want nobody playing on the team to play AAU. And you know I play AAU. Well, we'll get Coach S to maybe let you play, because you got to play. You can't stay home and eat oodles and noodles and play video games. You got to go out and play. You're already fat. I call him fat. He said he wasn't fat. He was just big boned, whatever. So I let him go ahead and he started practicing. He started going. He said, Ma, so look, if I'm going to play, I'm going to need some big sneakers, good sneakers, the sneakers. All right, Eric, I'll go to the store maybe. No, I can't because you wear 18. I'm going to have to order it. So we're going to have to talk to your dad about that. Maybe we can find some discounts somewhere. Call Nike. Mommy, I only wear Nike. I'm not wearing Pumas. I'm not. All right, okay. So to go on, make a long story short, he wanted me to say this. Coach Hess, he has some stories to say, and him and Tommy talks about it all the time. You put holes in you used to wear penny loafers, I believe, when he started playing. And you would kick the floor. Ma, he's kicking the floor, And Coach Hess' wife always said, Gail says, Eric and Tommy and all the boys, they got my husband going every night, every practice, I said, well, look, I can only say this. Coach Hess will never forget these boys, never forget them. And I remember working on Valentine's Day, Eric's senior year, and all the women in the office is getting candy, flowers, and getting phone calls. And I said, well, I don't celebrate Valentine's Day. But Coach Hess called, and he said, Deborah. I said, what? He says, are you sitting down? I'm like, Yeah, I'm sitting down. Is everything all right? Eric's okay? Yeah. Look, I'm about to tell you something, but you can't tell nobody. I said, what? He said, I got a phone call from Coach Wooten. I said, oh, okay, who's that? And he told me, he said, look, I put my life on the line. He said, will Eric be eligible to play basketball? He said, hell yeah, he'll be able to play basketball. He'll be eligible to play. Eric's got to finish with 3 A's, 2 B's, and a C. I wrote that down. I said 3 A's, 2 B's, and a C. All right, it's gonna be a job, but we're gonna do that. He said, now don't go telling nobody. I said, no, I won't tell nobody. And he said, they're gonna make an announcement. I said, for what? He said, Eric is gonna be a McDonald's All-American in New York. I said, no way. He's gonna be playing at Madison Square Garden. I said, oh wow, this is gonna be nice. I said, okay, because I'm from New York. So it was easy for me to have 75 members sitting on the floor representing and supporting Eric. So we had all these t-shirts made and everything, and we're sitting on the floor, and I said, okay, Coach Hess, I won't say nothing. And he said, I'm gonna mention it at senior night, I believe it was. And so I said, oh, okay. So I put the phone down, and I'm nervous, and I'm like, golly, Eric's gonna be a McDonald's All-American. Let me call Diane up. Diane, don't tell nobody, that's my twin sister. I called his father up. He took a moment, he started crying. I called up my sister in New York. I said, look, we gotta get some t-shirts for you. Eric's gonna be a McDonald's All-American. She said, what? I said, yeah. But look, now, don't tell nobody. It's not gonna come out until I think the end of February. I walk into this door right here. People are talking. The assistant coaches are looking at me. Going up there, and people are just talking. I'm sitting up there watching the game, and I said, I bet you any amount of money Coach Hester went and told everybody in the school. I'll find out he did. I said, let me tell you something, Deborah, he told everybody in the school. I said, I thought he told me not to tell anybody. I said, all right, well, come to make a long story short, we really, truly appreciate it. Eric is now in Switzerland playing, and Wake Forest is honoring him as well. I think in August or September, when all the players from Wake Forest can come back, they're going to have a basketball game with Eric's class, and I think his brother-in-law, who is Ishmael Smith, who played for the Detroit Pistons. I think those two groups are going to be playing together. And I'll let you know, because I know you used to come to all Wake Forest games for free. So you used to travel down the roads, 85, like I did, 85, 3 times a week, and probably weekends. Now, it takes me longer to get down there. It's like an all-day trip. I spend the night, and then I come back. And I can't even turn around and come back anymore. It's such a long ride. But we really, truly appreciate it. Eric, I'm sure I'm going to send in a picture of this, and hopefully he wasn't going to make it home for Mother's Day. I'm hoping that he'll be home in June. Eric is married and have 2 boys, my 2 grandsons. I love them very much, and they're big. Not as big as Eric when he was that size, but they're pretty big. And the oldest boy is 9, Travian. He plays basketball and flag football. And Grayson, he's very laid back like Eric. He just plays video games. Thank you very much, and he appreciated it. Hopefully he'll be able to speak next year when the other inductees are inducted, and he can speak for a little while. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Please convey my sincere congratulations to Chuck for this amazing achievement, so well deserved. It's my intention on being here tonight, but unfortunately I'm ill. I want to publicly acknowledge my pride and admiration for a man who built the athletic program at WFR during my tenure as principal. Chuck was a determined and caring leader. I relied on his counsel on many occasions. He was more than a coach and athletic director. He was a student-centered teacher who cared about all students and colleagues. He is highly respected in the community, has had such a distinguished career as a coach, teacher, and leader. Very happy and proud of my friend, Chuck Hess. couple things about Coach Hess I want to share is number one, when you go to shake Coach Hess's hand, move your hand fast. You got to get it in there because he's going to crush your hand. I always remember that. Sometimes I was successful, sometimes not. Boom. The other thing is, if you're ever an assistant coach, friend of Chuck Hess in any kind of intense situation, which is every time you're standing near Chuck, he would grab your elbow. He'd like grab your elbow. Jeff, look at that, look at that. And he'd grab it, right? Well, I hadn't seen Chuck in a couple of years, and he came up to watch a basketball game, and I was so tickled to see him. We hugged, we're talking, cleaning up after. I wanted to meet Coach Seymour, our current basketball coach, and of course having an interchange with Chuck and everything. And I get home that night, I'm talking with my wife, and I'm like, Dadgum, my elbow hurts. I don't know. Oh, that's right. Chuck was back. Sitting there grabbing over the whole time. I could tell you a million stories about Chuck, but in my 26 years at this special place, a lot of people have meant a lot to me. But I do not become who I am today without Chuck Hess. He gave me the opportunity to coach. He taught me that special skill of how to love young people and demand the best from them. And I don't want to go on too much longer, but I love you, Chuck. This time I'd like to ask one of his players from the 1996 state championship team come up and share some stories about Coach Hess. Brian Wood.
Coach, this is well-deserved, and I'm honored to be a part of your ceremony today. Your accolades are ones that are hard-pressed to be beaten here at this school. You set the gold standard of what it means to be committed to the school, the sport, your players, and you set the gold bar of where the standard is here. Now, a few weeks ago, I was asked to share some stories. And it was hard pressed, but I kind of G-rated these down a little bit. I started thinking back, my first year playing for you, varsity, was sophomore year. And it was first game, I think we went down to Southern Vance, somewhere down there. And you know, I was lucky enough, my teammates put the ball in the right spot. I came out of there with a hat trick. And a lot of people, that's hard to do. And I was trying to think of the word, but everybody in here said it, intense. So we get back into the locker room, and he's looking around, he's doing his post-game speech. He goes, Woodruff, that's what I need from you every game. Can you do that? And I was like shaking. I'm like 14-year-old, I'm probably 150 pounds, scared, you know what, because the intensity. I'm like, sure, Coach, yeah, I got that. And I get home that night, I'm like thinking, does he really think that that's even possible? I was scared. I was like, man, but that's what he did. He put that bar so high, and he expected you to try to reach it. And he did that for everybody. Moving on junior year, we had a soccer jamboree, I think in Durham somewhere. I played like 3 or 4 teams. It wasn't full games. And I get home, I've got this rash on my chest, and I don't feel sick. I go to the doctor, they say, hey, you got mono, a mild case of it. And so I come back the next day, I was like, Coach, doctor said I can still keep playing. If it gets worse, I gotta stop. But you know, I can't do any of the extra, you know, the sprints, the hills, all that stuff you do when you mess up. And you should have seen the look on his face. He goes, you're telling me you can play in the games, but you can't run these hills right here? I was like, that's what the doctor said, Coach. So that whole year, you know, I'd mess up. He'd look at me like, Woodruff, run! I can't make you run. He'd be so frustrated, and I was like, man, this mono's pretty good. No, but in all seriousness, I wish I could run that year. And I don't think he forgot it. Let's fast forward to senior year. We had a practice. We're out on the baseball field. That's what he stuck us back there. And we had the soccer goals that you roll around, and he says, okay, if you miss the frame of the goal, then you got to run. And I was one of the first few up. I said, well, I'm just going to shoot it like I normally shoot it. I'm not going to just baby foot it out there. And I hit it. I hit a hard shot, and it was on frame, Coach. But Brandon Barber blocked it over, and I start running because you miss the ball, you go get your ball. I start running. Woodliff, go run. I was like, all right. He gets 3 miles on the track. And I was like, all right, you don't question it, you just do it. So I went down there, and I think Dare, Blankenhorn, and Andrew White followed me. Like 5 minutes later, we're down there, we run our 3 miles, and we get back, and it's just practice again. I mean, who doesn't like a 3-mile jog in between drills? Good times. I named this one Late to Practice. Y'all mentioned earlier, you don't come late to practice. So we used to sit outside the gym on Saturdays, and we'd sit there, and usually the Broncos are already there. Well, this time we show up, and the Broncos are nowhere. And we're like sitting there looking, it's past game time. Practice. And so I don't know if 2 or 3 guys went down and looked down on the field, or if Coach came up, but he says, y'all are late for practice. And we're sitting there like, what? What are you talking about? Well, we walked down there, he parked his Bronco on the track that day. And we go down there like, oh man, we're late for practice, I guess. We start putting our cleats on. He goes, boys, you ain't gonna need your cleats today. We ran, I think, for about 4 straight hours. That Indian drill. You sit there and you're in a line, back person sprints all the way to the front. I had nightmares about that thing. That and the hill. I think they put a fence at the hill now. It's probably not runnable. But, Coach, he always had pregame music down there. He'd play like, Van Halen and, probably 80s rock, maybe early 90s rock. And I don't know who convinced him to let us one game play our music. And so somebody put the music together. It's probably like 90s grunge rock, some hip hop, whatever. He said, hey, just make sure it's, people can hear it. And I remember being down there warming up for the game, and I hear some songs come on, and I was like, oh Lord. And I look up, and the parents are looking around like, what in the world's going on? And that was the very last time we ever got to choose music to that. We had to go down to Cape Fear. They were in our conference, and it was a easy 2-hour one-way trip down to Cape Fear. And we showed up one time, and the field is underwater. I'm talking about the track had that much water around the whole thing, and they forgot to call Coach and say, hey, we postponed the game till tomorrow. And this is the team that, we beat pretty handily. He would put restrictions like, hey, everybody's got to touch the ball before you score, or, when we got up, or you got to score with your head, or next day we get down there, he says, all right, boys, no restrictions today. And I think it was about 10-0 at halftime. They said, all right, y'all can take an early trip back to Wake Forest. Thanks, Coach. That was like extra 2 hours we didn't have to stay down there. Winning the state championship was my dream. And I know everybody who plays high school sports, that's what you want to, that's the ultimate goal. And, we accomplished that. But the one thing that Coach and I have talked about is that bus ride to the state championship that day. Now, everybody knows a bus ride, you joke around with your teammates, not too much because you probably won't play that game, but you joke around and at the end the coaches give you a speech. Well, that bus ride was different. It's quiet, you just sat there and everybody was staring, and he'll say it to this day, before we got off the bus, he feels like we won that game. I don't even think he gave us a speed check. He just let us get off the bus, and it was awesome. It came full circle because the first practice we had, he pulls us in the old gym over there, sits us down. First thing he says, we're winning the state championship this year. And everybody looks there, and he started that belief in us, and that if you put your mind to what you want to do, it can happen. And I'm just so proud to be a part of that team. Coach, these are some of the best memories of my life. What you've given me, every other player who's played for you, is priceless. It goes beyond all the wins and championships. You helped us not only be the best player we could be, but you helped us grow into the men we are today. I am grateful and honored to have played for you. Congratulations.
Coach Chris Monte. Chris and I were young men, assistant coaches with Coach Hess. Chris was his JV coach, and then Chris eventually took over the boys soccer program here as I coached the girls soccer program here. And Chris would like to say a couple words about Coach Hess.
Good evening, y'all. It's gonna be hard to follow up behind all those great speeches. I've loved these stories tonight. I started my career here 26 years ago with that guy right there. Great teacher, great coach, great friend. And Coach Joyner, I've gotten to know this year. He's doing a great job. This school is a great school. I love Wake Forest High School. We have great students. We've heard from some of them tonight. Brian Woodliff, a former player. Daniel. Just a note on Daniel, you know, I taught him all year long. Back then we had students all year long. And I knew he was a phenomenal athlete. And I grew up around baseball. I have an older brother that played Division I college baseball. But I never had any idea that he was that talented. He just kind of kept it to himself. And anyways, it's pretty cool. Well, anyways. Look, Coach Hess is like an older brother to me. Jeff, I'm never read this. I'm just too nervous. Sorry.
Chris says, in 1993, he asked me to help start the JV boys soccer team at this school. He also convinced me to help a bit as assistant basketball coach. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing as an assistant basketball coach, but I learned a lot, had a ton of fun. Here are a few stats to introduce this great friend. 7 consecutive conference basketball championships, 1994 to 2001. 4 consecutive sectional championships, 1994, 95, 96, 97. Led his team to a state championship final in 1995. 1996, we lost in the Eastern Regional Final. That was a basketball game that we could have won. The team that beat us went on to win the state championship the next week by 20 points. Chuck mentioned a lot, and I agree, that sometimes losing feels worse than winning feels good. He also mentioned that the only good thing about losing is reflecting and learning and figuring out how to coach so teams don't keep making the same mistake. Chuck always found something positive to focus on even when the chips were down. Coach Hess also started our school's varsity men's soccer team in 1984. This Hall of Famer got pounded in a 12-1 loss and was almost ejected in his first game as varsity coach. He didn't believe the official when he said you couldn't call a timeout. But Coach Hess bounced back like he always has. Won a conference championship that season and 8 others too. 72 consecutive conference victories in the 1990 to 1996 state championship run. No timed games victories. Coach Hanks focused on the little things that help players and teams perform at an elite level. We clinched the soccer state championship in 1996 with a corner kick play and won the regional final to get there on a play and tackling technique that we practiced all year long. I doubt most other teams ever focused on these 2 plays and all the other little things like us. His basketball players also made a heck of a lot of free throws. Chuck always viewed coaching as an extension of the classroom. He told me this many times. He prepared for each season like a teacher prepares a course for each semester and wrote down a plan for each practice on those note cards that you probably still in a box somewhere. He didn't just shout when he taught players what to do to win on the field, on the court, and in life. The last and most important thing Chris would like to talk about is the size of Coach Hess's heart. Chuck has an amazing love for life and a desire to help others. He was a career special programs teacher and worked to help all kinds of children. He's also been recognized a few times for these efforts. He was named the Wake County Special Olympics Coach of the Year in 1981, Wake County Public Schools Teacher of the Year finalist twice, 1985 and 1995, and the United Cerebral Palsy National Volunteer of the Year in 2001. Coach Hess truly believes that all children from all backgrounds have potential and deserve support. He truly cared for all of his students and players more than most people will ever understand. The desire to give something and to help others is what Chris admires most about Coach Hess, and me too.
I just want to close with a quote that some of you guys might know that Coach hung in his classroom, and he signed all his emails with this quote. I think it speaks a lot about the kind of person he is. The quote was, "All that is not given is lost. All that is not given is lost." Chuck.
Wow. Don't know what to say. Throw every speech you ever wanted right away. Wow. This is special. I didn't realize, I gotta first off, give credit to my dad. My dad called me the laziest human being he'd ever met. And it scared me. My dad was a big man. I'm the run of the family. My dad was a 6'5", 260-pound ex-Marine, and I feared him till the day he died. But he told me that I was lazy, and that scared me. So towards the end of his life, we had to sit down and we talked, and I told him, I said, Dad, remember when you told me, you said I was the laziest person you ever met? He goes, yep. He said, but I also want you to know you're the most driven person I've ever met. And I said, well, I want to thank you for calling me the laziest person because I didn't want to be that. And I hope that I was able to maybe get that point across, that if you work hard and try to teach people to work hard, they'll get it. And I just am very thankful that I had an opportunity to come to Wake Forest. I got to thank Coach Larry Lindsay for, I don't know what he saw in me, because he has a funny way of remembering this when we first met. But I was hired sight unseen to teach down here. I'm a graduate of Central Michigan, and I got tired of the cold weather up there, and I wanted to go south. And I flew down to Florida for an interview, and it was too hot. So I said, well, let's go about halfway back. And I came about halfway and ended up in Raleigh, North Carolina. I interviewed there, and there was a lady there. Her name was Judy Dill, and she told me about the middle school. And the middle school was being run by Mr. Colburn. Remember George Colburn? And he was the guy that hired me. He hired me sight unseen. And I'll never forget the day I drove up and saw the middle school and met Mr. Colburn. And he told me, this is going to be your classroom. He took me down, and I was a special education teacher. And I remember walking into the classroom, and there was just nothing but desks and chairs. And I said, do you have any material? And he goes, nope, you're on your own. And I said, luckily my dad told me I was lazy, because I got to find a way not to be lazy and get this job done. And I worked over at the middle school for 4.5 years, and Coach Lindsay called me one day on the phone. He asked me to be his freshman basketball coach. Back then, it's the greatest way to learn how to coach is to start out as a volunteer coach, where you're not getting paid, but you're helping somebody. You start out as a Special Olympic coach, where you're working with kids that are just don't have the opportunities to have what everybody else has kind of been blessed and born with. And then Coach Lindsay let me be the freshman coach. And I learned a lot as a freshman coach. I think I learned so much as a freshman coach. And then I became a JV basketball coach. But Coach Lindsay has this vision of me as a Midwesterner coming down, and I met him for the first time. And at the time, this is the late 70s, and I think disco was out, and I think I was wearing clogs at the time. And Coach Lindsay remembers this, and I got to tell you this, I'm embarrassed about it, but I had these clogs on, And I think we had button-down shirts or something. And I don't know what he saw in me, but thank you, Coach, for giving me the opportunity to straighten up and have a chance to coach. And the best coaching that I think I was able to do was being a JV coach. I coached some phenomenal JV players. Nellie, Mike, Reggie, Romus, the story of Romus. I give all the credit to my wife, Gail. He did a pretty good job saying that story. But I came home and I told Gail, I said, look, he's not going to play for me. He says, Chuck, you can't do that. And I said, well, he skipped practice and came late the next day. And she says, you got to teach him a lesson. Well, and I didn't want to, I'm stubborn. I'm a Taurus. I'm real stubborn. She goes, you need to make him the manager. Well, this is even a funnier story because without Romus playing, we're not winning. And we went, was it 2 weeks as you were the manager? He was washing the uniforms. He had to sit on the bench in a coat and tie. He couldn't play. And it was killing him, but it was killing me. But what was real funny was the kids on the bench go, hey, Coach, when's Romus coming back? And I said, what do you mean? They go, we want Romus back on the team. And I said, okay. So he came back, and the rest is history. We're winning, and Coach Lindsay goes, Romus, you're on the varsity now. So that was real special. He got promoted real quick, and you're a special player, let me tell you. You really were. You still are. You're a special friend, and thank you for staying in touch with me, all the Lucases, and the Harrises, too. That should be well known. Nellie's mother used to be one of the custodians here, and it was really funny to see her work because you would come and she's washing the windows and she could do it without a ladder. She's 6'7".
Come on, Coach.
She's a tall lady. She's about 6'5", but she is a wonderful person, and she did a great job raising Nellie. And retiring in when? Next year, 30 years in the United States Army, and he's the highest ranking non-commissioned officer you can be. In other words, the captains and the lieutenants ask him what to do, and he says, we got it all ready to go, sir. Right? Yeah. Very, very special. Reggie, Mike, I got stories about every player that I've ever had an opportunity to coach has a story. And I was sharing Mike's story out in the hallway, and then Reggie, you should be up here tonight being inducted into the Hall of Fame. Let's face it. I mean, you've done phenomenal. He's got the best winning record in the state ever. Percentage-wise, it's like 99%. You just can't. Phenomenal. I'm just very lucky to have been here and got to know you. You're a big part of my life. All of you are. I've got Brian. Brian was, he's the only kid I've ever known that could kick the ball with his right foot just as hard with his left foot. And he was ambidextrous. And he made the winning goal down here in sudden death overtime that took us to the state championship that year. And unfortunately, he's talking about attention to detail. I wish I wasn't so much attention to detail because it's kind of, this repetitive, compulsive behavior that I have. I'm always worried about failure. We're getting ready to play for the state championship in soccer. And we had come upstairs to watch on the television. They were doing a news run Friday night before we're going to play on Saturday. And we brought the team up into Coach Belcher's office to watch the news on the 5 o'clock news, whatever it was. And they come over and do it. And I said, okay, we saw it. Let's go down in the stadium and run one more play. I just was really, really worried about, making sure we had it all covered because I didn't want to go all the way down to Durfield and get beat. We wanted to win. And this was our mission. So we go down there and we're doing a set play. And I got Brian standing in the wall. And one of my players is kicking a dead ball play from outside, and he kicks the ball right into Brian, and Brian takes his leg and he puts it out to stop the ball, and the guy hit a rocket, and he tweaked his knee real bad, and I'm going, oh no. Now I know that, Glenn, you didn't sleep that night because I kept calling you every hour to find out, you know, how's Brian doing? And, you know, Glenn, oh, he's going to be okay, we've iced it, this and that. But I mean, I could kick myself in the butt for that. But Brian came the next day, and I know he struggled to play, but Brian was a big, big part of our state championship, and he played that last game, and everybody was so determined to make sure that we accomplished what we wanted to do. But the funny thing of this whole story is, in 1983, when Coach got me to come to the high school, Charles Rose was the principal, and he called me in the office, and he goes, look, I know you want to be the JV basketball coach, because that position was open. And I said, yes, sir. And he said, in order to be the JV basketball coach, you're going to be the soccer coach. And I go, what's soccer? And he goes, you'll figure it out. So luckily, I had a basketball background to kind of draw on, because I had no clue. And I didn't want these kids to know I didn't know what I was doing. So now you really know I'm really an actor, you know? I'm going to practice every day with my cue card, because, you know, I want to make sure I'm doing it, got it all right that we're going to do. But that first game we're playing, yeah, I'm calling timeout. And my players are saying, you can't do that. And this little referee runs across the field and puts this yellow card over my head. And he go, Coach, you got to shut up. And I go, what do you mean? I want a timeout. He says, there is no timeouts. And he says, if you don't shut up, I'm going to give you another one. I go, what's another one? He says, you're going to get a red card and you're going to be thrown out of here. And I kind of looked around in the stands, and parents are kind of like, oh, what do we got down here coaching our kids? And I'm going, you know, that's pretty bad, isn't it? So I got real humble, and I tried to really study the game, and I think Glenn came later on in my career when Brian was playing, and we used to have kind of abbreviated short practices on Saturday at the top of the stadium, and the parents would show up to get their kids a little early, because I wasn't done yet, and they were saying, what's he doing down there? And Glenn was a famous basketball player here. He played for Coach and won a state championship, but Glenn was telling them, well, if you watch what he's doing, he's teaching them how to play basketball on the grass down there. And I was trying to teach the kids how to play man-to-man defense, because I looked at soccer this way. It takes a lot of skill to play basketball with your hands, but it takes more skill to play with your feet. So I said, if we can make people play. August of 1998. And it was the first day of school, and I used to be in the 600 building. I was on the bottom floor, and across the hall from me was Coach Shelton's room. He was a math teacher, and the principal at the time insisted that all of us stood in a hallway during class changes. So we're all out in the hallway, and my phone rang in the classroom. I was the only one on the floor that had a phone. And I went back into the room to answer the phone, and all of a sudden, Lee Shelton comes running across the hall and says, Coach, did you see that? And I go, what are you talking about? He says, oh my God, the biggest human being just walked down the hallway. And I'm going, what are you talking about? He says, no, hey, look, we got to go find him. Well, the bell rung, and so we go walking down the hallway, and I'm looking in the classrooms real quick. Let alone, I've got a class of students, and he's got a class of students, and we're still walking down the hallway. So we go up to the second floor, and we go down the hallway, still looking in the room. And finally, we go up to the third floor, and Lee goes, Coach, there he is. And I walked by the room, and it was like a total eclipse of the sun. He was so big sitting on this little stool. And the teacher, I stuck my head in the door, and I said, I need to see that young man. Can you send him out in the hallway? And the teacher says, you need to go out and see Coach Hess. So he comes out in the hallway, and you usually don't do this. I've shrunk a lot. I was 6'2" at one time, and I could kind of look people in the eye. When they're 14 years old, I could kind of look, you know, a little down at them. But now I'm looking up at this young man, and I said, son, what's your name? He goes, and he looked down. He was looking down at me, but he looked down at the floor. He's a real humble young man. He says, Eric. And I said, son, look at me when you talk. I said, what's your name? He says, Eric. I said, what's your last name? He said, Eric Williams. And I says, do you play basketball? And he goes, and he didn't say it. He was real quiet, very humble kid. And I said, look, this afternoon after school, I want you to come down to my classroom. I'm on the bottom floor of the 600 building. You walked past my room just a little bit ago. And he looked at me and said, yes, sir.